If you don't move, you can't be heard. Hi, I'm Stevie Ray, an improv professional for over 40 years and a martial artist for nearly 50, and I use the disciplines of both to help people own their space. You remember the teacher you had in school, or perhaps a speaker at a conference, who just stood and talked and didn't move at all? It didn't take very long for it to become a struggle for you to concentrate and follow along. And that's not because the information they had to offer wasn't important or you were a bad listener. It's because they were not accessing the part of the brain that works the best. The visual cortex of the human brain evolved long before the auditory cortex did. It is much larger and much more powerful. It affects our listening ability, our decision making, and whether we trust somebody. If somebody just speaks, they're trying to access only the ears. The human brain didn't evolve to hear words, it evolved to hear sounds, pitch, tone, intonation, inflection. If you stand and don't move, the visual cortex of the human brain is not being activated, so we find it very difficult to follow along. That's why gestures are a part of human communication. A gesture is not just a random movement. If somebody just does this while they speak over and over and over again, that's not gesturing. That's annoying. Gestures are a visual representation of the idea. So if you say big, you have to gesture something that means big. If you say one, there's one. If you say important, that's that. Back and forth. Gestures can be different for everybody as long as they're there. Now, you can overdo gestures because you overthink it and try to put it into every idea. It has to be a natural part of the way you move. But you have to avoid just standing and putting your hands in front or in back of you and not moving at all. If you don't activate that visual cortex, the brain will shut down. Now, when it comes to words, we overthink our word choices. Yes, we should have accuracy in our message, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it. We've heard that for generations. How you say it is the music of the voice. The voice is a musical instrument, so we should think of it as whole notes, half notes, pauses, rises, and falls. Just like a good musical piece has all of that variation, so should our voice. If you are talking like this and you are solely thinking about the information you have to impart on the audience, you're not displaying confidence. You really look nervous up there, which makes us nervous, which means we don't want to listen to you anymore. But it also shows you're not thinking of your audience and what their needs are. Movement is how we own our space. In the martial arts, we're taught to occupy our space so we can protect ourselves and others. In improvisation, we're taught to own the stage because that's the only way an audience can relax and enjoy the presentation we have to give. Movement and voice are part of that. So, as you're preparing for a presentation or a meeting, think about the music of your voice and think about the gestures you have. If it's uncomfortable, it'll take some practice. I had one client who was a corporate president and he delivered a lot of presentations and he never moved his body. So we looked at his script and I said, right here, you're talking about the global initiative you're about to start with your company. What does global look like to you? And he said, something like this. And I said, great. And we wrote down that little note in his script and we scripted gestures above each word that had some kind of impact he was attempting to make. This is like any skill. You have to practice it piece by piece until it just becomes a natural part of who you are. By the way, if you have people who look at you and say, stop moving your hands so much when you talk, one, they could be uncomfortable with movement. Some people are. Two, you might not be gesturing, you could just be waving your hands, and that's very frustrating to watch. If it's the former, it's their problem. It's the latter, it's your problem. So, practice movement, practice your voice, and own your space.